I want to ask you something, and I do not want you to answer quickly. I want you to answer honestly. When you put the phone down tonight, when the noise finally stops, when it is just you and the ceiling and the quiet, do you truly feel, that you are becoming the person you were meant to become? Or do you secretly feel yourself drifting, busy, distracted, entertained, but slowly becoming someone you never intended to be? If that question makes you uncomfortable, good. That discomfort is not weakness. It is proof that something inside you is still awake, and that part of you brought you here. Napoleon Hill spent most of his life studying one question. Why do some people build extraordinary lives, while others slowly surrender theirs? Not in theory, in reality. As one of the most influential pioneers in personal achievement and success philosophy, Hill dedicated decades to studying the habits, mindset, and decisions of highly successful individuals to uncover the principles behind lasting success. He studied it in factories, offices, workshops, dinner tables, and quiet conversations long after success had already arrived. He sat with wealthy people who were miserable, and ordinary people who carried a kind of power no money could buy. And after decades of watching both, he was able to tell us this with absolute certainty. The difference between success and failure is almost never intelligence. It is rarely luck, and it is almost never where you started. Now I know what some of you are thinking. The world is harder now. And in many ways you are right. The cost of living is crushing people. Attention spans are collapsing. Most people are exhausted before they even begin. Some of you feel like you inherited a race where everyone else started halfway down the track. I understand that. I do not dismiss it. But here is what I have observed, sitting across from people in both camps. The ones who escaped those conditions did not wait for fairness. They did not waste energy demanding the race be restarted. They became so focused on where they were going that the conditions around them lost their power. That is not a small thing. That changes everything. Definiteness of purpose. Not a vague dream, not a motivational quote saved to your phone. A decision, a real one. The kind that rearranges your life. The kind that keeps tapping you on the shoulder while you are trying to ignore it. And yes, sometimes it feels irrational, because the rational mind only measures what already exists. It calculates probabilities, it counts risks, it explains why something cannot happen. But every meaningful thing humanity has ever built began with someone becoming unreasonable enough to imagine it first. And I must correct one misunderstanding here. The burning desire is not about wanting things. The people Napoleon Hill studied, who built the greatest fortunes, were not at their core chasing wealth. They were chasing problems, consumed by an idea they could not set down. A gap in the world they felt personally responsible for filling. The wealth was the residue of that obsession. It followed the purpose. It did not precede it. Most people are not destroyed by failure. They are destroyed by distraction. One week they want freedom, the next week they want comfort. The week after that they want certainty. And so they move in circles for years while calling it thinking. You do not need more time, you need fewer contradictions. Napoleon Hill wrote of a man named Edwin Barnes, Barnes arrived at Thomas Edison's laboratory with no money, no reputation, and no credentials. He rode a freight train there because he could not afford a ticket. And when he finally stood in front of Edison, he said something completely unreasonable. "I have come to go into business with you." Now understand how extraordinary that sounded. No experience, no leverage, no invitation, just certainty. And Edison noticed something most people miss. There is a look in the eyes of someone who has truly decided. Not someone interested, not someone wishing, not someone trying. Someone decided. Most people never reach that state. They negotiate with themselves too much. They say, "I'll start when I feel confident. I'll commit when life settles down. I'll go all in once I know it'll work." But life rarely rewards hesitation. Barnes accepted a tiny opportunity, barely above a janitor, without hesitation, because he understood something powerful. The door does not need to open fully. It only needs to open slightly. That is enough for a committed person. He proved himself in small things, quietly, persistently, without complaint, and eventually he became exactly what he declared himself to be, standing on a train platform with empty pockets and a full conviction. Not because he wished hard enough, because every single action in his life moved in one direction. So let me ask you something difficult. What have you actually decided? Not what sounds exciting, not what would look impressive to others. What have you truly committed yourself to? Because desire without commitment becomes torture. You keep imagining another life while continuing to repeat the habits that are creating the current one. That pain wears people down slowly. And this is where most people make a critical mistake. They try to do everything alone. No one builds a meaningful life alone. Not one. Not ever. And what worries me about ambitious people today is not a lack of intelligence. It is isolation. You are connected to thousands of people and deeply alone in your ambition. Some of you have dreams nobody around you understands. So eventually you stop talking about them. Then slowly you stop believing in them yourself. I once knew a furniture maker in the north of England. No formal education, no wealthy family, no connections in the traditional sense. But every Thursday morning he sat in a tiny back room of a hardware shop with two other men, a retired engineer and a young accountant who charged him nothing. They challenged him, questioned every decision he made, corrected him when he was wrong. He told me near the end of his life that those Thursday mornings were worth more than every contract he had ever signed. Following people online is not alliance. Admiring successful people is not alliance. Real alliance requires truth. Someone who believes in your potential but refuses to tolerate your excuses. Right now, think of one name, one person who makes you better when you're around them. Reach out this week. Your future depends on it more than you know. Now, faith. And I am not talking about religion. I am talking about a mechanism. Most people wait for evidence before they believe in themselves. But creation does not work that way. First comes vision, then comes movement, then comes evidence. You hold an image in your mind long enough, clearly enough, emotionally enough, and your brain begins reorganizing around it. Suddenly, you notice opportunities that were invisible before. The entrepreneur sees a gap in the market. The writer hears a sentence that becomes a book. The athlete notices openings nobody else can see. Opportunity was always there. Your attention simply was not pointed at it. You are not waiting for opportunity. You are withholding belief from yourself and calling it realism. Listen carefully. Confidence is not a feeling you wait for. Confidence is evidence you build. You wake up when you said you would. You train when you said you would. You work when you said you would. And eventually your mind says, maybe this person can actually be trusted. That is how self-belief is built, not through motivation, through proof. Now let us talk about failure, real failure. Every person I have studied who built something meaningful went through a season where life stripped them down completely. Not inconvenience, devastation. The kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about yourself. And some of you are in that season right now. Some of you are grieving a version of your life that was never going to happen. That pain is real, but it is also revealing. I once interviewed a woman who lost an entire company she had spent decades building. Money gone, relationships strained, reputation damaged. And after months of silence, she said something I have never forgotten. When everything fell apart, I finally discovered what was actually left of me, and it turned out to be more than I thought. That is what failure does when you let it. It burns away performance, it removes illusion, and what survives that fire is real. Only on real ground can you build something that lasts. Do not run from that season too quickly. There are lessons available there that success never teaches. And finally, discipline. Here is the sharpest truth I can offer you. You are not stuck. You are uncommitted. Most people spend years waiting to feel ready, but readiness is a myth. Nobody feels ready when it is finally time to change. Discipline is not punishment. Discipline is self-respect in action. It is the agreement you make with your future self. And then honor. Built in small moments, repeated daily, until you become someone you can rely on. And understand this clearly. The modern world is designed to destroy your focus. Every notification, every endless scroll, every algorithm, all of it competing for your attention. Because attention is life, and whatever controls your attention controls your future. Right now, millions of people are slowly trading their potential for dopamine they will not even remember tomorrow. That should frighten you. Start small if you must, embarrassingly small if you have to, but start. One commitment, kept consistently, then another, then another. That is how identity changes. That is how you become someone you can trust. So now we return to the quiet, back to the ceiling, back to yourself. You now understand the principles, purpose, alliance, faith, discipline. But knowledge that sits unused in your mind becomes something far worse than ignorance. It becomes regret. So what is calling you? What idea keeps returning no matter how many times you dismiss it? What problem feels personal to you? What future keeps whispering at you while you try to distract yourself with comfort? Find it, commit to it, and then work. Not because the world owes you a result, but because there is something in you that deserves to be fully lived before you leave this earth. The greatest tragedy is not failure. It is reaching the end of your life and realizing the strongest, bravest, most alive version of you never got the chance to exist. Do not let that happen. Tonight, when it is just you and the ceiling and the quiet, let the answer be different.